Hey guys, and welcome to /Rex Games. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make one of those memory match card games. So before you we have 24 of these cards placed face down, and what's happening here is we've got a controller that is being created, and in its create event I'm telling it to create 24 instances of object card, and each card is going to be given a different type. And right now it has a variable called flipped that when false shows the back of the card, and when true it shows the front of the card. So I'm just going to go through this game and show you how it works. At the top here we have an array that has one type of card over here and the second type of card, and what it's doing is when we flip one card, notice it's double trouble, it says their card type equals double, and this is the instance ID of that card, which is 100,026. So what I'm doing is when I click a second card, it's going to store that card's information into the second part of this array here, card 2, and it's going to see, well, if the types are the same, then it means we have successfully matched a pair and they will not flip back over. So double trouble, click over here. Oh, it's also double trouble. So well done, we have a first match. Next over here, the mobs, the fixer, the sprayer, double trouble, the wizard, the mobs. These ones are mobs, see? Notice that when it flips them back, these are reset, and they're given a random ID over here. So that one was mobs, that one was mobs. Because they are both the same, they stay up, and we have that one completed. The fixer, see? This is what it's all about, the Russian, the sprayer. I think the sprayer was down there. And the objective of this is to see how many times you can play this game with getting the least amount of flip attempts. So here 22, which means I've flipped 22 cards, and currently I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So of those 22 attempts, 12 of those were very successful. So let's carry on. The wizard, the sprayer, fixer, double trouble, the Russian. I think Russian was somewhere down here. Double trouble. There we go. Sprayer, Russian, wizard, Russian, sprayer, Russian, mobs, fixer, bam, bam. So there, 46 attempts, and we have successfully finished the card game. And at this point in time, you can say, well, if all the cards are, flipped over, the game ends, and maybe it stores this flip attempts in some sort of high score table. So right now I'm going to jump straight into the code and show you how you can accomplish this. Make sure that when you are doing your memory match card game that you got some really cool cards for the player to flip around. I mean, look, these are pretty cool. I guess they're all based on all the kinds of characters you've all encountered in my tutorials so far. So let's jump straight into the code, and I'm going to show you how we're going to create that object, as well as the object controller that's going to make all the magic happen. So here we go. So here we are within the project file. If I open up our sprites resource tree, you notice we'll see card back and fixer. These are all the fronts. Russian, sprayer, wizard. Then we've got the mobs and double trouble. Yeah. So I've just created these cards out of all the kind of characters we've encountered throughout the course of these tutorials, and now that that's done, those are all our sprite resources that we need. We need to create two objects. One's going to be called object card. The other one is going to be called object controller. As always, when we have one master object to create them all, I like to call it object controller. Now, the card object is just going to be given this back for now, and then we're going to put that away. We don't need to deal with that until the very end. So let's open up object controller. It's going to have a create event and a draw event. Draw is just going to draw our score as well as that array, so we can see that everything's being stored correctly. So in our create, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to firstly resize this window. What I'm going to do here, also increase font size F8. I'm going to create some variables. If you don't know what they mean, it doesn't matter. I'm going to be referring back to them as we build this matching card game. So firstly, I want to say global dot selection number equals 0. This is just so that when it gets to 2, it means that we've flipped the second card, and then we can test if the cards are the same. Otherwise, it's going to flip them back. So that's global.selection number equals 0. Now we're going to create that array to store the two cards before the comparison. So it's going to be a global. We're going to call it match, and then open up. It's going to be a 2D array. The first value 0, 0 is going to be null. That's the type. And then I'm going to copy paste this one over here. And that's going to be 1, 0. also null. Then paste that over there to add some semicolons. Then this is 0, 1, and 1, 1. Okay, this is an instance variable ID, so I'm going to call it 999. Let's just do 999. This is just so that when it compares them and they're not the same, we can just say, hey, this instance, flip your card. You no longer should be displayed. So flip back over, and if the user remembers it, good for him. If he doesn't, too bad. But you are not to stay faced up. You are not the same. So go back to facing down. So you'll see later on when we test those cards, we'll use this ID value to flip those cards. Then next, global.canSelect equals true. When I flip one card and I flip another card, I want them to stay up for a few seconds just so the user can, put that into memory of what those cards are. Otherwise, they're going to flip over too quickly, and then it's not really a memory game, it's just a big guessing game, which is not that fun. Then we've got global.flipAttempts. That's how many times we've flipped cards. Then width equals, well, it's going to be width and height. If you remember from that preview, it was 3 down and 8 across, so that's 24 in total. So width here is going to be 8. It's 8 cards across and 3 down. This is just so that I'm going to create a nested for loop, which is going to create 3 cards for every card it creates from the left to the right. So the first card it creates far left, it's going to create 3 down. Then it's the second card and another 3 down. It's going to be doing like that. It's one big block. Then I'm going to create some variables here, one for every card. If we go over here, you can see there's Fixer, Russian, Sprayer, Wizard, Mobs, Double. Now, because we've got 24 spaces for cards, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got 6 of these. It means there can only be about 4 cards each of each type. So 4 Fixers, 4 Russians, 4 Sprayers, etc. on this thing, because we need to make sure that for every Fixer that's turned over, there's another Fixer out there that's turned over. So we need an even number of each different type. So here I'm going to say Fixer count equals 0. So this is just pretty much to hold on to a variable to make sure that we've got only so many of each one. So once this hits like 4, to make sure there's 4 of these Fixers, for example, then it's going to stop creating them. So that's Fixer. Then next we've got Rush in Sprayer, Mobs, the Wizard, and Double Trouble. So it's just going to be called Double. All initialized to 0, just like that. So we've got them all. There we go. So as soon as one fix is created, this is going to be incremented to 1, 2, 3, 4. When it gets to 4, we're going to say, do we still have, is there space for another fixer? No, we've hit 4, so don't make any more fixers. Then it's going to be checking the rest and stuff like that. So that's going to be pretty cool. Then also we've got X, X, and Y, Y. This is where we want to place the cards. The first one is going to be at the top left corner of the screen. So if this is our game room, as we see here, the top one's going to be over here. Then it's going to create the next one, next one, next one, next one, and them down. So the first X, X, and Y position is going to be 80 and 160. Then I'm going to randomize the random number generator, seed, whatever, and I'm going to get a random number, random, out of 5, see, so it's going to give me a random variable between 0 and 5, inclusive, and notice that we're getting 6 digits, so we could get 0, we could get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And these kind of refer to these kinds of things. So if it's a 0, we want to create a fixer. If it's a 1, we create a Russian, a 2, sprayer, etc., all the way up to double counts right here. So double trouble will be number 5. So now we need to create these cards by using 2 for loops. It's going to be nested for loops. So we're going to create a temporary I. I is going to be less than width, so this is from left to right. I is going to increase every time, so it's incrementing there. Give us some space. Then we're going to create a second for loop. This is going to be down, so var j equals 0. J is less than height. So this is pretty much how you draw a grid. For every element of width, it creates so many height, So this is going to go all the way up to I is less than 8, so it's going to create 8 of those. And then for each 8 of those, it's going to create 3 of them. See, there's that. Okay, so also J++. Let's create our braces here. Now I created that card variable, and I didn't give it anything, because actually we're going to be creating this over here. We're going to say var card equals instance create, and we're going to give it that XX and that YY that we set over here. Okay, putting it there. And we can create an instance of object card. So we didn't give it any code. I just made it beforehand so that you could see that that's exactly what we're creating right over there. So it's going to be creating a temporary variable, and it's going to store this instance ID on the fly into this temporary variable card. And now that we've got that card, we can say like card.type equals something. So we can say, if the random number generator generates a 0, then our card type is a fixer. So the card sprite should be that of sprite card front fixer. Pretty cool, huh? So let's do this here. So let's take that away for now. Let's go back over here. We've created the card. Then while found equals false. Let's see, did I create that found variable? I didn't, but I put it over here. So what it's going to do is it's going to create a round number. Found is false. So it's going to keep finding one, cycling through all these, making sure that it doesn't create too many. So if there's too many fixes, then it means that the domain, of the range you can create is only Russian, Sprayer, Mobs, Wizard, Double. As soon as it finds a spot, so maybe these are all 4, but Wizard Count can put another one in. That means as soon as it finds that, oh yes, when we generate a 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, when we generate a number of 4 over here, it means making a wizard, and then found has been, it's true. So then it's going to skip that whole while, and it's going to do it again when it hits that for loop again. Okay, so ultimately what we're doing is we've got our grid of, of cards that it's creating, and we're just assigning a sprite to that card depending on our random number generator. And we're also making sure that there are an even number of each card. So that means because there are 6 cards, there's going to be 4 each. 4 fixers, 4 Russians, 4 sprayers, 4 mobs, 4 wizards, and 4 doubles. So while found equals false, so yeah, again, if it generates a 0 and we've got all the fixes, it's going to get to the bottom of this while, and we're going to tell it to generate another round number, and it's going to keep generating another round number until it doesn't generate a 0 anymore. And then there you go. It's really quick, so even if it generates a 0 30 times, you're not even going to notice. It's in the blink of an eye. Okay, so while found equals false, we're going to use the double equals. Over here we're going to switch on that random number. Now this is going to be quite a bit of code, so I'm going to be using some copy-pasting. So we're saying case 0, so if we get a 0 as our random number over here, that means we're creating a fixer. So card.type, remember, we've created this temporary variable, so now we can shove stuff into it, and then in this card's create event, those things will all be there and we can use them. So that's going to be pretty cool. So card.type, here we're going to say equals fixer. See? And we're going to say found equals true. So now that it's created this this card, it's given it a type. Found equals true. We're going to increment this one, fixer count plus plus. If you're using GM8, use plus equals 1. Now that it's doing that, this becomes 1. So now it can generate another fixer and another and another. But it knows that every time it does that, this is going to be going up by 1. Now, once we're doing this, notice that we need to give it some sort of control to make sure that it doesn't create more than 4. So over here, I'm going to say if fixer count is less than 4, okay, it's going to be creating one. Now, do note that when it gets to 3, which means it's created 3 because it starts at 0, so the first one will be 1, second one will be 2, third one will be 3, and when it calls this whole lot again, because it creates another 0 at this random number, that third one, or that fourth time it goes through, is still going to be less than 4. It's going to create the card of type fixer, it's going to find it, and it's going to become 4. That means it will never create another one. Every time it hits 0 again, it'll just keep skipping this entire switch statement, and while will still be false. So right at the end of the switch, we're going to have to tell it to make another random number. Or actually, we can just do it here. We just copy this and paste it in over here. So, if it turns out that we've got too many fixes, we've got 4, not too many, we've got just the right amount of fixes, we've got 4, that's the even number, we don't want to make any more of those, we're going to go into this else, we're going to randomize the seed and create another random variable, then it's going to get to the end of the switch and do this while all over again. Remember, it's already created the card, so basically what this while is doing is saying, the card's there, it needs a type. Keep cycling through while until it has a type, and then once you've done that, we're going to create another card and do it all over again until we've created all 24 cards. So I'm going to quickly copy paste these. This case 0, and it's going to go all the way up to case 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Back to the top, I'm going to, oops, sorry. F7, reduce the size a bit. Okay, so that must be 1, this must be 2, this must be 3, that must be 4, and this must be 5. So we're going up. So that was Fixer, next one is Russian. Fixer, Russian, Russian, rush in. Found equals true, so all the same. Next one was Sprayer. So we got Russian, Sprayer, Sprayer, Sprayer right over there. Next one, Mobs. So after Sprayer, Mobs, Mobs, Mobs. It always found equals true. These are pretty much the same, so it doesn't matter. Then there's the Wizard, the mighty Wizard. Wizard, Wizard. Wizard, Wizard. And double. Double trouble. There we go. Excellent. So it's done that. It's creating a random number generator. It's giving that temporary card instance a type. Oh, another thing. We need to actually... Boop, boop. Just for fun, I'm going to say found equals false when it doesn't. Just to make sure that nothing happens and it ends up saying found equals true somewhere along the line and we get some bad output. So this is just a control. I mean, you don't really have to put it in there, but you know, you might as well be double sure. Find equals false there on all those else's. Okay, so there it's done the switch. Let's find the bottom of the switch. We can get rid of all this white space. And also when it's done that switch, it means it's done that while. It's going to jump back to the 4. Then we need to randomize this again. And find equals false. Make sure we're doing that. Let's increase this again. And also, let's see what we're doing over here. This is height. So after it's done a height, it needs to increase the width to put the next card down. So YY at this point was 160. YY needs to increase by 224. I think that's the width of the card. YY plus equals 224. So you can find this project file in the description. I'll have all these comments and stuff. Well, I'll add comments so that you can find out exactly what's going on. I do suggest you watch the video that I'm making right now as you go through the project. It'll help you along. So close that off. So that should be the middle, the inner 4 right over there. After the outer 4 is done, it should increase the Y and the X. Let's see. The X should plus equals 160, I think, was the width over there. Yeah. Then the YY should actually go back to 160 right over there because the outer loop is width. Which means that whenever it does width, we need to make sure that it's doing it on the same YY equals 160. Cool beans. So now that's done. Let's run through it again. We are making sure that this is our 0 selected. Click the first card, it goes to 1. Click the next card, it goes to 2. Then it does its whole story. Can select equals true. We can start selecting cards. We haven't flipped any yet. Our width is 8 by... our grid is the 8 by 3. These are all 0. We haven't flipped any cards yet. We haven't placed any of these cards yet, sorry. The X, X, and YY, that's where we're putting the first card, and that's going to be increasing and resetting depending on what the column or the row is. Found equals false, we haven't started putting cards, so found equals false, randomizing the seed and getting a random number between and inclusive of 0 and 5. Then we are doing that for outer 4, the inlet 4. The outer 4 is doing the width from left to right, and for every card on the width it places, 3 cards on the height. I think that is correct. Yes, 3. Okay. So in here, it's creating a variable called card, which it's storing the instance ID of the current object card that it creates, and then it's going to be cycling through this while to make sure that it assigns a correct card to an available blank. Okay, so that's done. Let's accept that right over there. I'm not going to worry about the draw just yet. I'm going to go into object card because in that controller we did set up some stuff that we now should use. Okay, so I'm going to add a mouse left pressed event. So this is when we click on one of the cards. Notice that when it does start, it is blank. Set card back. So here we need to, oh actually wait, let's make a create. And let's initialize type to null and flipped equals false. Okay, so yeah, doesn't have a type yet, and it's not flipped. So this is going to pretty much wait for that while loop to give it a type. Okay, so back into left pressed, we've clicked a card. It's going to say, well, if global dot can select. So if we can select a card, then do stuff. There we go. Can select equals true. Then we're saying, well, if flipped equals false, we want to make sure that the player is not clicking on a card that is already flipped over. Because we don't want to store that card's information in the second half of the array, because it's going to see, yeah, the types are the same, so they are technically right, but you've clicked the same card twice. So, yeah, as long as we can select a card, and the one we've currently selected is not flipped yet, then it is flipped. Right now it's flipped. We are going to increment the global.flip attempts, I think it was called, plus plus. Then we're also going to increment global dot, I think it was selection number, which started at 0, so it'll be a 1, so this is the first flipping. Then we need to get that array that we had here. Let's copy that. See, that starts at 0. Let's paste it in over here. We just need that. Pretty much the syntax of it. So we need to set the first one to the type. That's the variable that the while loop gives it. And this is going to be the ID. And here we're going to have selection attempts. Copy this. So we don't know which one it's on. And I think this has to be -1. Yeah. It has to be -1 because global.selection number starts at 0, then when we get over here it becomes 1, but we want to get the first element, so it's 0. I mean, you could, I guess, put this select number afterwards and then just set that to 0, but it doesn't matter. In this particular order, where we're incrementing selection numbers before we check in the array, put it -1. So now we need to say, well, okay, so this is going to be storing this type and ID into the array depending on what, which selection number. If we selection number 1, it's going to put it in 0. If it's selection number 2, it's going to put it in element 1. So here we need to check, well, is this the second selection? See? So if it's the second selection, it means, hey, we need to do some checks. We need to check if this type at global match 0, 0 equals the type at global match 1, 0. So that's pretty much what we're going to do. I'm going to copy that, and here we're going to say if global match at 0, 0 equals global match at 1, 0. See? Square bracket. That means match has been found. Check that out. We found a match. Pretty cool. So let's open and close some of these. Now, here's the fun bit. I did explain why I'm storing the IDs, but here we get to use it. So what we're going to do here now is say with. And then here we take that and paste it in here. Change that to 0, 1. So that's going to grab the ID. So with an instance with that ID, we can now say flipped equals true. So that's just to make sure it's flipped. It should be flipped already, but now it knows definitely that it should be flipped at 1, 1. So that's the one stored in the two elements of this global.match array, 0, 1 and 1, 1. Those will have those IDs. So now that it's flipped them, it needs to reset the array that we had in the controller. So we can just actually copy all this code and the selection number, because selection was 1, then it was 2, then we got a match. Now it needs to reset to everything as if we never had any matches to start with. So put that code as is, right bang down into 26 to 31, right over there. Cool. Selection number is 0, and this has been reset to default values. Also, we need to say global.canSelect equals true again. Right over here, single equals. Now, over here it was saying if we have a match. Now, well, what if we don't have a match? Else, If we don't have a match, I'm going to call an alarm 0, and it's going to be room speed times by how many seconds do we want? Let's give the player half a second to check those cards out before they are flipped back. So we should have the correct amount of brackets. Let's go through this again. If we can select a card, and the card we're selecting hasn't been flipped, so it's currently face down, then right now it's flipped up. We have increasing our flipped attempts because this counts. That's towards our scores and whatnot. This is either the first or second selection number. This should be incrementing that by 1. Then we're going to be going through the array saying at this selection number, so if it's 0, if it's the first one or the second one, at that spot, save the type and save the ID. Then if this is the second, if it's not the second one, it's not going to do this code or this code. See, it's just going to carry on. Then you select another card, and then it's going to get to this part because it's the second selection, and it's going to say if we have a match, if the element at 0, 0 is the same with the element at 1, 0, we have a match. Flip both. Make sure both of those cards are, flipped up. Reset everything, and go on away, waiting for another click. Also, we're calling this alarm if it's not a match. So if it's not a match, we need to flip the cards back. They're now face down, and that's going to happen half a second after you click the second one and it finds out it's not a match. So let's jump into alarm 0, alarm 0, and code, and alarm 0. So this is the flipping the cards back down when there isn't a match. It's going to say with global.match, and this is 0, 1, so this is the ID that it's saved. Flipped equals false. We're not flipped, and copy, paste, 1, 1. That one also is not flipped. So as soon as it gets to not flipped, I'm going to have a draw event that says if it's flipped, if flipped equals true, then show the face of the card. If flipped equals false, show the back. So this is going to be doing that, and the draw event's going to grab the say and say, oh, we're not flipped, so I'm going to show the back. Then what we're going to do is reset that array. Over here, copy all these, paste them over here. So we always have to reset the array after we've after our second selection, right over there, and that's pretty much it. All this alarm is doing is telling these cards at ID that's stored in 0, 1 and 1, 1 of that match array to make sure they are no longer flipped. So the user doesn't really get that much time to see what card is flipped, but this is a memory game. You gotta be quick. So now let's jump into the draw code that's gonna pretty much be determining what part or what face of the card should be shown. So if flipped equals true, oops, do some stuff else, we are going to say sprite equals SPR back, card back, and then right here at the bottom I'm going to say draw sprite XY, sprite is going to be sprite. That's just a variable created to store the name of the sprite we are doing. Subimage 0 at position X and position Y. And over here we are going to create a switch statement. And this, funny enough, is going to cycle through the types. You remember, we created a type. If we go back to the controller, when it determined what kind of type we need to set that card as, so after we created the temporary variable that stored the instance ID, here we go, card.type equals fixer. So we've got fixer, Russian, sprayer, mobs, wizard, double. So I'm going to copy all these because I am lazy, perhaps. Copy those, we've got all of them. Go back into our card draw event, paste these in, and just delete everything that isn't those words. Just to make sure that we are not misspelling anything. Because that would be terrible. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that goes there. Bam. Break. And then copy this 5 times. 3, 5, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That next one's Russian. Next one is sprayer. Mobs. Wizard. So, Fixer, Russian Sprayer, Mobs, Wizard, and Double. So I can get rid of all these because it's really switching on that type. And simply all we're doing is the same as this on the else. But we're calling it in, we're calling it in here, and then we're going to save whatever sprite we should into this sprite variable, and then that's going to draw it right here at the bottom. So in this case, it's the Fixer, so sprite, telesense come up, Fixer, we can do that. This one should be Russian, over there. This one should be front sprayer, mobs, card front mobs. This one should be wizard, front wizard, and lastly, double. Bam. Okay, so yeah, that is switching on that type that the controller gives it when it places that card. And it's just going to be saying, well, if you're the Fixer, then obviously you need that sprite. And then right at the end, it's going to be drawing that. If it isn't flipped, then it's just going to draw the card background, which is the default right over there. Okay, so that's done right over there. Now one last thing, I want to jump into this controller and just quickly draw. I'm just going to draw that that array out so that we can see. Okay, so that's pretty much that. It's going to be drawing them all in red so that we can see it against that black background quite nicely. So it's card 1 type, card 1 ID, card 2 type, card 2 ID. That's just pretty much everything that's in that array, and it's going to be displaying how many times we've flipped cards. So that is all of that. The object controller has no sprite. So we're going to create a room. We need to make sure our room, I'm going to call it Game World. Make sure it's a 1280 by 720, speed of 30 is great. I'm going to set the background to be black. Object, so there we go, it's great. We just need to create that controller right over there. We don't create any instances of card. That controller handles all of that, and it's going to put it nicely here on this black background in our room, and it's going to be on in like a grid pattern. So let's save this, and hopefully there aren't any errors. If there are, we'll just jump back into it and find them. Oh, looks like we've got a slight error. Forgot to initialize I to 0. Let's go back there in our controller. Quick fix. Yeah, see this one we did var j equals 0. We need to make sure it's 0 so it knows where to start. Var I equals 0. Okay, good. Let's try again. Alright, so there we go. Seems there aren't any errors. If I click one, click the next one. Good, it's working. Now we need to make sure that we can't click so many. Oh, see, there's a problem. We need to make sure that we're not allowed to select until those ones have flipped back. Otherwise, this is going to be messing with our array. So let's go back. And we need to set that can select variable when we select these. When we press something, we need to make sure that can select equals false. Aha, if it's the second one, this is where global.can select equals false, just over there. We also need to make sure when it goes to that alarm, yeah, see here it resets and sets can select back to true. So we needed to make sure that we are now setting it to false if we're on that second one, where it can have some time to determine whether it should flip and reset or if the card should stay there. So make sure in our alarm we're setting that to true or good. Whoops. All good. So now let's play again. Here we go. So we shouldn't be able to. Oh. See? We can't select it unless they've flipped over. Okay, this is giving us a terrible score. But anyway, so as you can see, we can't select more than 2. Wait till those ones flip back over, and then we can carry on. So now if we had to attempt to play the game with this far in, mobs, wizard, fixer, wizard, fixer, another wizard. Oh, that was a lucky one. Russian. I think this was a fixer, yeah. So as you can see, the memory part of the game is already starting to sink in. I'm remembering things, and bam, in 82, the worst score in history, I have matched all the cards, and I've had a fun game. So as you can see, there are 4 fixers, there are 4 mobs, there are 4 wizards, there are 4 sprayers over there, and there are 4 double troubles right over there. So it's spread them out. You can see there's no correlation here. I mean, everything is random. And every time you play the game, it's going to be completely different and fresh. So the player can't guess, or not get, the player can't remember where things were the last time. I know this is a memory game, but that's the wrong kind of memory that I'm talking about. And click the same cards over and over again. So those are the dynamics behind a memory match card game. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial and found it both helpful and educational. Please feel free to comment, rate, and subscribe. You can follow me on various social media platforms like Twitter, Google+, and Facebook, where I'll put updates on the cool stuff I'm doing, as well as other things in the world of game development currently happening. If you really like this tutorial and would like to become a sponsor of this channel and its active development, you can check out my Patreon campaign. Link is in the description as well as on the screen. You can donate a few bucks, and ultimately, all funding goes to making this channel a much better place of learning. So yeah, everyone benefits. It's really great. If there's anything you didn't understand, put it in the comments. I mean, we've got quite a community going, so either me or one of the other guys watching this video will help you out. So that's pretty cool. So this is what it's all about. I hope everyone had a fantastic holiday and Happy New Year. In our next tutorial, I'm going to be doing card shuffling. You know, you have a deck of 50 something cards and you need to shuffle them. Now the cool thing about this is we're going to be using a DS list instead of a whole bunch of for loops, and it's so easy, it's going to blow your mind. So stay tuned for that tutorial. I'll have it up when I do. So until then, happy coding, and I'll see you guys next time for another great GameMaker tutorial.